What's up, everybody? It's Jacob with Electric Trading Cards bringing you another weekly Pokemon auction recap. The demand right now for Pokemon cards is absolutely insane. It's red hot. It's more than red hot. It's basically burning magma at this point. Next week we have the 30th anniversary. It's going to be interesting to see if Pokemon prices are already built in to the current market prices or if we're going to see an increase in prices, which sounds insane. Overall, the Pokemon market is up about 3% for the last 2 weeks. So if you thought prices couldn't go up any further, they can and they are. So getting into some vintage Pokemon sales from last week, we'll start with this PSA 10 base set and limited Sandshrew, which sold for $149.99. Up next, we have this PSA 10 Shadowless Growlithe that sold for $164.50. And continuing the trend with some non-holos, we have this first edition base set Eradicate, which sold for $510. We had this PSA 8 Japanese Misty Tears, which sold for $105. And then we had this PSA 10 Topps Chrome Pidgeot, which sold for $64.99. This PSA 3 Shining Celebi from Neo Destiny sold for $279. Next, we had this PSA 8 First Edition Kabutops Holo from Fossil, which sold for $117.50. And then we had this PSA 9 Gold Star Registeel, which sold for $1,700 even. And this PSA 9 First Edition Hypno from Fossil, which sold for $164.50. We saw this PSA 9 First Edition Dark Dugtrio Holo sold for $259.99. And then the CGC Expedition Typhlosion Holo, which sold for $650. This CGC 8 Lugia from Neo Genesis First Edition sold for $1,799 even. And then we had this PSA 9 Japanese Neo Promo Charizard sold for $250. And this PSA 10 Japanese Morty's Gengar, which sold for $1,600. Up next, we had this PSA 10 First Edition Fossil Aerodactyl Holo, which sold for $4,000. And then this PSA 9 First Edition Snorlax from Jungle, which sold for $2,250. We then had this PSA 10 Masquerain Reverse Foil from EX Deoxys, sold for $775. And then a huge sale here, we had this PSA 10 Legendary Collection Reverse Dragonite, which sold for $26,000. This PSA 9 First Edition Base Set Dugong sold for $81. We then saw this PSA 10 Yanma from EX Team Rocket Returns Reverse Foil sell for $700. We saw this PSA 7 First Edition Base Set Clefairy sell for $552.97. This BGS 7 Gold Star Torchic sold for $3,317.67. We then had this PSA 9 Butterfree Expedition Holo sell for $454. Reverse Holo Pokemon cards are definitely up right now. This PSA 9 Pikachu Reverse Foil from EX Holland Phantoms sold for $435. PSA 8 Southern Islands Mew Holo sold for $571. And this PSA 10 Base Set 2 Alakazam sold for $1,880. Moving in to some more modern cards, we had this PSA 10 Burger Chew sell for $59.99. This PSA 10 Rayquaza Black Star promo from Sword and Shield sold for $88. And then this PSA 10 Charizard from Phantasmal Flames UPC sold for $242.50. This PSA 10 Mew EX Hyper Rare sold for $123.76. This PSA 10 Celebrations Charizard sold for an even $676. We then saw this PSA 9 Dragon's Vault Rayquaza Holo sold for $499.99. And this PSA 10 Bulbasaur Illustration Rare from 151 sold for $187. This PSA 10 Galarian Moltres from Brilliant Stars sold for $73. And this PSA 10 Umbreon from Brilliant Stars, a full art, sold for $168. And this PSA 10 Mega Charizard from EXXY Evolutions sold for $183.50. We saw this PSA 10 Champions Path Charizard promo sell for $81. This PSA 10 Charizard from 151 sold for $1,125. And this PSA 10 Sylveon from Prismatic Evolutions sold for $1,050. We saw this Tag 10 Roaring Moon Prismatic Evolutions SIR sell for $455. And this PSA 10 Sunbreon SIR sold for $4,300. And last but not least, we saw this PSA 10 Evolving Skies VMAX Rayquaza in a damaged PSA slab sell for $1,350. And the auction of the week, if you guys haven't heard, Logan Paul sold his PSA 10 Pikachu Illustrator card on Golden Auctions for a whopping $16,492,000, making it the #1 highest priced trading card ever sold. Holy smokes. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this weekly Pokemon auction recap. I'll see you guys next week.